Then first of all, I'm presenting this paper inside this work with some colleagues, both from the University of Venice and the SAFE Center at the Goethe University in Frankfurt. And then Michele, Costola, Hristova, Carmelo, Latino, and Loriana, Pelizzon. Just to start and to give also a part of the dimension of the problem that has been already introduced. The social responsible investment in this last year, really grew up in an impressive way. And if you see also from this chart, the part that is related to the ESG incorporation, it is really the most relevant one. And at the end of just before the start of the COVID outbreak, it reached the 17 trillion of dollar, and then with a really impressive increase from the 2019. This continued, the COVID outbreak does not really change, even increased the flow in sustainable investment. Here it is the data in the last quarters, and as you can see, this is the flows. They are really impressive. The most part are from Europe, but also US and the rest of the world are starting to increase. Then this increased demand for sustainable investing generate the rise of ESG rating agency first, and then the need for sustainability ratings. And more than that, this means for policymakers, as we are discussing, corporate and manager in general, a deeper understanding of the ESG particularities and meaning, and then a better and wider knowledge of the potential impact of this rating on the real and financial sectors. Clearly, there is from the stakeholder and from the investor in general, the difficulty coming to have information and to understand this information. Then what we will see is that really the need of a reliable and harmonized ESG data in order to first allow the correct allocation of the funding, and then to avoid the misallocation and the greenwashing. That is certainly a problem that can arise. Then here the research question that we address in this paper. First, the differences among the different rating agencies in assessing the ESG rating, how these differences affect the result in terms of ESG rating, and then the implication for the definition of the ESG portfolio and their financial performances. In the literature, at the moment, there is attention mainly on the economic and financial performance of the ESG stocks and portfolio, but without taking into account the particularities and the way in which the different ESG rating scores have been created. And in this paper and this work, we try to put these two things together and then to assess the portfolio, fast composition, and then their performances. Then to understand what can be the differences among the different rating agencies, here it is the 9 big players that we take into account. And then first, let's go to see how they differentiate in their methodology. Clearly, you cannot look at the details of these tables that are anyhow available in the paper, but let's start to understand first the history, since a part of them have a longer history, but it is not so long in other cases. Most of them are usually European based, or anyhow, there is a higher attention in Europe than in the other area. And looking at the sources of the information, the most part of them are publicly available information, then companies report, websites, and so on. But there are cases where this information are integrated or replaced with surveys. What is really impressive in the differences among these ESG methodologies, the number of assessed criteria. They go from a minimum, let's say, MCI 37 to, for the FTSE Russell, 300 ESG criteria. Then you understand that it is really, the difference can be really important, and often the different agencies work and then assess the metrics in relation to the industry in which the company belongs. Then the result at the end, it is relative to the industry and not a global assessment. The risk factors that are considered usually are in the main ESG part, then environmental, social, and governance, but there is also, some differences on these, since in some cases the sustainable dimension incorporate also the social dimension, or the social dimension incorporate the governance sphere, or in the case of RobecoSAM, the governance dimension is substituted, replaced by an economic one. More importantly, is really the last point, that first the materiality and then the way in which these different indicators are weighted and then, let's say, assembled in the definition of the ESG final rating. What is also important to underline is that often the rating agencies at the end adjust their final rating by integrating specific issues specific to the industry, but this specificity and this integration are in very low cases available, then they are not really published, and what is not really known is also the assigned weights to the different criteria and also to this integration. Then we have seen that the differences can be important, but we can also see the differences as a different way to assess the same result. Then look at the result first in order to judge if there is an important after impact in terms of ESG rating. Here is first to see the different way in which the different rating agencies, transform the assessment in a rating. The MCI goes from the CCC to the III in the standard way, while the other, Sustainalytics or RobecoSAM Definitive here, goes from 1 to 0 to 100, classing in the different percentile of the ranking. Now, what we try to also to understand and to describe the differences, we put the different ranking with us translating a score, an harmonized score, in order also to understand, and to measure better the differences. But see, MCI goes from CCC to AAA, the other go from the minimum, then the lowest evaluation is from 0 to the highest, that is 100. Now, see some examples. This help in see what is the impact of the final ESG rating. Then you see, look at Nissan Motor, for example, the second line in the table. This is very low, the evaluation for Sustainalytics MCI. It is quite good for RobecoSAM Definitive, and really with a big change in the impact of the result. The same for the other example that are here. But if we want really to have a general idea of the differences in the rating, here I take this graph from a colleague, Roberto Ricobon, that from MIT. He's working on the same type of things, and the way in which he decides to present the result is really easier to understand. Then here, the different color, the different rating agencies. You have the company on the left, and the score. As you see, they are really dispersed. You see some correlation in the middle, but they're really dispersed. then it is not simply some example, but in general, they are really dispersed. If we now use the classification, I mean, in the different classes from 1 to 7, as I've shown before, and then we measure simply the mean absolute error, then the differences among the classes, then the rating classes for the different providers, then what we see is that the difference is on average more than one class and a half. Okay, and also if we consider the percentage of agreement and considering the allocation in different classes, you see that it goes from 20% to, I mean, nothing, I mean, it's not really 30%, then it is really, really low. Also considering the harmonization then of the different ESG rating, trying to take into account their distribution that you see here. Anyhow, I mean, the difference in terms of mean absolute error and in terms of also percentage of agreement, it remain high in terms of differences and low in terms of agreement. Now, this is the differences that we have seen translate in really different ESG rating. Now we try to see how, I mean, these different ratings translate in benchmark first, and then to see how it is possible to work with these ESG indexes. Here it is the label and the different ESG index considered, the rating provided that is behind, and you have also the number of constituents. Each of them have been created using the best-in-class approach. Then the different stocks constituents has been selected as the best-in-class. Here it is an overlap analysis. Then the percentage that you read there is the overlap, then the size of the intersection between two indexes divided by the size of the smallest one. Then this helps in having higher percentages. And here you see it goes from, I mean, it is around 50%, 2 by 2, and if we consider all together, the overlap is very low since it is only the 15% and 48 constituents. We try to understand if these differences can come from the geographical composition, the sectorial composition that here you see in terms of geographical area and the sectors for the different index considered. Then also if we match in terms of geographical distribution, I mean, we see that for the Europe, the second part of the table, the percentage increases. In the other case, I mean, for North America, remain in line with the average result presented at the beginning, and it is even worse for the Asia Pacific area. Then, I mean, also controlling for the geographical and sectoral distribution, the differences in the definition, first of the rating and then of the portfolio, then in the indices remain quite strong. Then let's see if we can say something more in terms of financial performances and then see the implication in terms of financial performances. We look then at the ESG agreement portfolio. Then we look at the part of the constituent of the different indexes that are considered as best in class and are considered part of the index by all the rating agencies. And clearly we check the performance of this ESG agreement portfolio, comparing it with the non-ESG portfolio. Then the agreement portfolio, as you see from the picture, is simply obtained by the overlap of the all, in this case, 4 rating agencies. Then, as I said before, it is the 15%, 48 constituents. The non-ESG portfolio, then we consider all the constituents of the MCI World Index, then by difference with the MCI World ESG Screened Index, we obtain the non-ESG portfolio that includes 119 constituents. Then the way in which the MCI World ESG Screening Index is considered is a negative screening, since it excludes, all those firms that are not in compliance with the United Nations Global Compact principle, and then are involved in controversial or unacceptable activities. Then here our two starting portfolio, the ESG agreement and the non-ESG portfolio. The components are 38 for the first and 119 for the second. We consider the total return obtained from the Aecon data stream at the monthly frequencies, and the portfolio are equally weighted. Here it is the result in terms of cumulative returns. We distinguish two periods, let's say, before 2005 and after 2005, and on the right we have the overall period. The blue line is the non-ESG portfolios, and the red is the ESG. Why this distinction between before 2005 and after? Because, the definition of the ESG has been in those 2004-2005 years, and then we see if the definition, then the introduction of these ESG criteria, change also the way in which on one side, the performances and the index, and then the performances have been expressed. Okay. As you see, before it appeared the blue line, then the non-ESG appear better. After it is not really clear, also if in the overall period, the end, at least in the last years, the ESG appear over, then the red line is over the blue line. But if we look at the performance measures for the two portfolio in terms of Sharpe ratio, Sortino ratio, here you have different indicators. To tell the truth, ESG does not really appear better than the non-ESG, and worst, it is the non-ESG appearing better than the ESG. And this is also when we consider the sample or the last part of the sample. Also if in this last part, the results are less strong than in the overall period. Here, we then go deeper in the understanding of the differences, or better, in finding if there is the impact of these ESG indices in terms of better performances. Here, the analysis has been done with the considered Descartes four-factor model, then the market factor, the factor related to the capitalization, related to the book-to-market value, and the momentum. Here, you can see some differences, but the main point is that before 2005 or after 2005, it appeared that the alpha, it is significant, but for both portfolio, and then there is no differences in the two portfolio. We go deeper in understanding then.
That's Monica.
Okay, I do very, very, very quickly. We go deeper in the understanding, then check for the sectorial analysis. Since there is differences in the geographical and sectorial analysis, we consider the ESG matched portfolio And then we reconstruct the ESG agreement portfolio, enlarging a little bit the constituents that we can consider, but the result does not change. We go, then there is no differences again. We also consider the remaining part and the ESG disagreement portfolio. And also in this case, comparing the agreement and the disagreement, then clearly change quite a lot the dimension of the two portfolio. But there is no differences in terms of performances. Then there is not really the ability to say that this impact in terms of portfolio performances. Finally, we also consider the fact that the indexes and their constituents can have a different data availability since the constituents enters or go out from the indexes in the different moment of the sample period, but also taking care of this, it remains that there are some performances appearing, but there is no differences, both considering the disagreement or the non-ESG case. Here, a few words on the impact that we can also observe in terms of changes in the ESG rating. This is a parallel work done in looking at what happened when the methodology changed, but it changed because it is forced to change in terms of methodology, but this does not mean that there is a real change in the ESG rating. But these changes are perceived by the investor, especially the retail investor in the market, as a sensitive change, and then they divest from some stocks and that they consider to be downgraded and move their investment to other stock with increased rating, also if this increased rating is only for a methodology reason. Then what appears it is that this, we can say,
last minute
confusion in the market. I mean, literally give the possibility to short seller or the arbitrageurs to take the opportunity to gain from this confusion. Then this is the implication in terms of disagreement and confusion that let me really end with the three last sentences, saying that there is really the need for a proper ESG information framework that does not leave the retail investor, confused and with a disagreement in the ESG rating. On the other side, especially for the climate impact, we need independent scientific information to support a better understanding and thus to avoid greenwashing. And finally, this is independent scientific information that is needed, but it's also the need for competent managers, both in companies and in financial institutions. Thank you so much.